Welcome to another episode of Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement. I'm here at the News Forum where all voices matter. With so much going on in Canada and the world today, both economically and politically, always grateful to have Thomas Caldwell return for his monthly roundup. Thomas, of course, the chairman of Caldwell Securities Ltd in Toronto. Welcome back, Tom.
Thank you, Tony.
Got to start with April 1st, the carbon tax. Are you in favor of axing the tax, or what's your thought on this large increase in gasoline and energy costs for Canadian consumers?
Well, it really comes down to the bigger issue of climate change, and it's gone far beyond scientific and very much cemented into the thought process of our politicians. And the problem with ideologues is they really understand and feel how other people should live their lives. This carbon tax is an outrage, period. And what is interesting, too, is you have to pay GST on the carbon tax, which I thought it was a goods and services tax, not a tax on taxes. In fact, CRA actually should be sending rebates to all Canadians who paid that GST on the tax. It's like a tax on the tax. But I agree. As far as climate change goes, we're way ahead of our skis, and we've made tremendous progress over the years. When I was a young fellow, I used to row down at the Argonaut Rowing Club here in Toronto, and Toronto had a yellow, green, black cloud over it every morning when we were out rowing. And so much pollution has been cleared up with catalytic converters. We've done a lot. We've come a long, long way. And we also have to keep in mind, Canada at this point isn't going to make any difference whatsoever in the climate change or carbon or anything else in the world. We're doing this for appearances' sake. And frankly, we tend to be a bit too focused in Ottawa on appearances, because China, India, South America, Africa, these are the guys, and they want a better standard of living, and I understand it, and that means more carbon, period. So right. I think definitely it should be axed, definitely, and it's not really being used. We have these taxes with theoretically a good purpose, and the funds always get diverted to something else. We're not building windmills or sun panels or anything else with this thing. We can't make a difference. Why burden the Canadian taxpayer more? We just are hit with more and more and more taxes. People are getting fed up with it, and I think it should be canceled.
I'm not trying to keep jerking your chain here, but here's another news report that's
easy to do.
I know which buttons to press with you, Tom. But this other news report came out in the last few days in the U.S. Dodge and Jeep, which is owned, they're a car maker owned by a group called Stellantis, is now laying off hundreds of workers as it shifts to electric vehicle production. Maybe this was always in the cards, but we were always told that, well, you go to EVs and you go to this type of electric, non-carbon based system, and it'll mean more jobs, not fewer. But it doesn't seem to be working that way with this particular car maker.
Are you suggesting politicians might have misled us? This, I find, Tony, is shocking.
Yeah, I know, it's shocking. I know.
The votes are still out. I mean, basically, electric vehicles don't work well above the 49th parallel, period. Right. We know that. Right. And at long distances, they still don't work well. We still don't have charging stations. So I think as far as the electric vehicle business goes, we're way ahead of our skis. And I'm not saying it's not going to come, and it may well come over time, because an electric motor is way simpler than a gasoline internal combustion engine. But it's going to be a long time before we get there, and it doesn't compete economically. If you notice, a lot of people are turning in electric cars, particularly in colder climates, or if you're stuck in a traffic jam, that mileage stuff goes way down. So I think it's, again, highly political. The American automobile industry has never distinguished itself in forward thinking. Witness, I remember growing up as a kid, what's good for General Motors is good for America. Well, General Motors is a byline, a sideshow to the real automobile industry these days. So you see what happens in that industry. I think they're going in the wrong direction, but what do I know?
I'd love to see the stats on auto thefts in Toronto, whether electric vehicles are passed over while they get to the the combustion engine vehicles. But that's just a theory, but I could be wrong.
I think it's a well-founded theory, Tony. I think you're all right on that one. Oh,
Yeah.
let's steal this electric vehicle. Oh, it's got 15 miles of mileage left in it. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
exactly. Thomas Caldwell, we're going to return after a short break. There's lots more to discuss. We'll be back after these messages.